Hello, I'm Phil Clubley. I'm the current chairperson of the Kinesiology Federation, and as part of our 30th anniversary celebrations, we're talking to some of the people who were there at the beginning of the Federation, people connected with kinesiology, and people who've supported either the Federation or kinesiology over the last 30 years. Today, it's my privilege to be speaking to Daphne Willis, who was the first chairperson of the Kinesiology Federation a few years ago, and was also head of 3-in-1 kinesiology. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit about that today. Hi, Daphne. How are you doing?
Phil, fine, thank you. I'm great this morning. How about you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes. Good. So you're the first chairperson of the Kinesiology Federation. Did you nominate yourself, or were you shoehorned in?
I kind of did nominate myself. Yeah, we had a meeting of all the people belonging to all the kinds of kinesiology, because we knew that a way of bringing everything together was absolutely necessary, and this was the right time. And we met in London at Baden-Powell House, and after a lot of talking, we decided to set up a steering committee, and somebody said, oh, we need somebody to chair it. Loudmouth, I said, I can do that. So it was a volunteer, really. And
yes.
So then, having volunteered to chair the steering committee, I then chaired, once everything was established, the first committee of the first inauguration bit of the Federation.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. So what was life like for you before kinesiology? Can you remember such a time?
Oh, my word. I can. I was a teacher. I taught junior secondary, and I had a lovely, lovely training, 3 years of training up in Grantham. And I spent the second year of my training in France.
Oh, lovely.
Because French was my main subject, and I actually taught French. So yeah, it was really super. I taught until my first child was born, then stopped working for a while, then had my second child. And when they were both ready to go to school themselves, I started teaching again part-time. So yeah, I had a lovely, lovely job. My last job was in a school in Epsom, and it's super, actually, teaching French in a middle school. And every year we used to take the children to France, first of all doing an exchange with a French school, so we went to Paris for a week.
Nice.
Finally, we used to take them to a village de vacances in Boulogne, and that was fun, really great fun. So I had a very good time working.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I guess being a teacher and a languages teacher as well, that's perfect for kinesiology, because you know, being able to present and teach is brilliant. But languages, it's kind of what we do. We're interpreting the body's knowledge into a usable form. So yeah, that's perfect. How did you discover kinesiology then?
Here goes another story. We moved down to the south coast, and I moved into a very dilapidated house right by the beach. Just had to climb over the wall and you were on the beach. I had 2 children, both of whom needed clean shirts, clean socks, clean pants every day for school. I had no hot water. I moved in with them and 4 builders who were pulling the house down around us because we were renovating it. And so I looked after the 4 builders throughout the week. They went home again because they lived in Surrey. They went home again to their wives and families for the weekend. And my husband came down to us for the weekend. But sometimes I just wanted to get out of the house, you know.
I'm not surprised.
It was a mess. And I didn't have any hot water or all the home comforts. Anyway, my friend one day along the beach said to me, would you like to do an evening class? So I said, sure, it'd be lovely. Anything to get out of the house for a little while. And she wanted to do accountancy. I honestly, thinking about numbers and my head starts going all over the place. So I said, nah, Rosie, I'm sure I can find something a bit more interesting than accountancy. And so I looked down the menu and there was something called complementary medicine. So I thought, let's have a go at that. And it was Touch for Health, being taught by the wonderful Pat Harrington. Don't know if you've ever come across Pat, have you?
No, I've heard the name mentioned though.
You must have heard the name. She's Irish, and she has a wonderful way of expressing things. And you kind of learn, despite Pat, because she would say, right, what should we do next? And she'd be on to the next muscle. Now, what would you like to learn this time? And we'd be on to something different. It was such fun and so different, so different. And she taught, I think in that first set of lessons, she taught 7 muscles. And then the period of training came to an end. And she said, would anybody like to carry on? Well, I think my hand was the first one to go up, you know. And that was the start of it. You know, the first 14 muscle balance was just the best.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And it sounds like it came along at the right time as well. I think anyone would have needed some complementary medicine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Listening like that.
Okay, we were talking about Pat Harrington. She will always be just a wonder in my mind, because she was the first person who introduced me to muscle testing and kinesiology. And I remember how she explained how she found Touch for Health. She's another one who had a lot of back pain, and her husband was a dentist, practicing dentist. And one day somebody gave him what we used to call the green book. I don't know if, Phil,
I'm not familiar
Touch for Health and knew about the green book. Well, it was the Touch for Health manual, which is that big, huge, super book actually, and it had got lines down each page you could cut out and make tabs so that you can see all the way down the side the names of the muscles. Fabulous book. I've still got mine. It's really bashed up. I've lost the front cover, but there's a lovely inscription to me from John Fee in the front, so I will never ever part with it.
I'm not surprised. John Fee being the father of Touch for Health.
Absolutely. And so anyway, John Harrington came across the Touch for Health book, and his wife Pat had a really, really sore back, and he took it home and he said, should we try this? And he didn't test any muscles or anything, but with the green book, you can look in the back, you can sort of look up back pain, and it'll tell you which pages to go to. I can go and get my green book in a minute if you like and show you. It's not green anymore, the green bit's gone. So they rubbed the points where it said for back pain, and Pat felt better. And she thought, whoa, this is incredible. And so they lived by the green book for a little while. With any kind of pain they had, they would look up in the back. I'll tell you another thing in a minute about something I did like that. And then she asked how she could learn it. I can't remember who taught her first. I do believe it was John. I know Pat did a lot of learning from John Fee, and she brought him over to England. Oh no, I know who it was, Brian Butler.
Oh yes.
Brian Butler was teaching a course, so Pat first learnt from Brian, and then she became an instructor and started teaching down in Sussex in her own way. But yeah, thinking about the green book and looking up to see how it can help you. Once I woke up and for some reason I couldn't move my arm and hand. It was just set solid. My wrist was so sore, and I had to drive somewhere that day, a long way. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to drive, that's ridiculous. So I just looked up in the back, wrist pain. And the points were that it showed were here. So during the breakfast and the rest of what was left of the morning before I had to leave, I just kept rubbing here like crazy. By the time I had to leave home, the pain had gone. So there you go. That was amazing, amazing. So thanks to John Fee and the Green Book and Pat Harrington, Touch for Health just started spreading because people were enthusiastic about it, told their friends, helped themselves, and it just started going. And there were 7 of us in Bognor who were really fascinated and interested, and we wanted to make something a little bit more formal and try to help people. And so we decided that we would inaugurate a Touch for Health centre. So the 7 of us, so one was Pat Harrington, one was Maureen Hardy, who we call M now, she likes being called M. A lovely gentleman whose name I can't remember, Harry, he's called Harry. Anyway, there were 7 of us, and we each put an amount of money, can't remember how much money it was, but it was a goodly amount of what we could afford together to rent, for the first few months rent, and we rented a room above a vet's in Bognor Regis. And so we transformed it into a Touch for Health centre. It had got 2 nice, really nice rooms and a little kitchen and a toilet. You had to go upstairs, and it was above the surgery where the vets used to look after the animals, and we looked after people up there. And eventually we ran courses from there. We met every Tuesday morning. We had our Touch for Health morning. We used to balance each other. People could drop in from the street and have a balance, have tasters, we used to call it. We used to do health exhibitions. We used to go up to London and take our couches and take all our posters and do the exhibitions. So Pat was teaching Touch for Health. Eventually more of us started teaching from in Bognor, and Brian also was teaching Touch for Health, and they had slightly different ways of going about it, as you might imagine. And we learned about other people who were teaching different aspects of kinesiology. So eventually somebody said, wouldn't it be lovely if all the different ways of teaching and different ways of using muscle checking and named kinesiologies were to get together and form not just a Touch for Health centre, but a whole kinesiology.
That's amazing.
Movement. Yeah, so it was fun. As each person learned something, we shared it. I can remember Pat learned the first part of educational kinesiology, and she was so excited about it. And she said, come and learn it, come and learn it. And we went to her house, and she taught the first part of Educate. And being a teacher, I really got hooked and loved it, and then went on to do advanced Educate. Kay McCarroll was the person who brought Educate to England, and she taught the advanced courses in London, and that's where I met Jeremy and Carrie Jost, and Anthony Attenborough. We were all on the same Educate advanced course together, and of course thinking Touch for Health, educational kinesiology, wow. And then we heard about Charles Benham, who was busy doing his own way of using muscle testing and helping people. And yeah, that brought us all together at that meeting that I first talked about in London.
Oh, that's amazing. It's amazing to see where all those strands started to come together.
Yes.
And we should all be very grateful that you did that for us.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know. I'm grateful that we were able to do it. Have just such fond memories of the first steering committee meetings in Jeremy Glynn's front room, in the drawing room, as he would call it, in his house in Guion Road, yeah. We used to meet there, and there was a lady called Penna White who used to come down from Scotland. Wow. And she would come down on the overnight train. Okay, I was lucky. I could go up and stay in a little spare bedroom. Jeremy had a 3-story house, and the bedroom right up in the roof almost was where I would stay, and it had a skylight, and I'd open the skylight and I could hear the planes going across, because it was quite near, not far from London Airport. Yeah, very fond memories of that little room. And it was where he had the couch where he did his treatments as well. So and he was a massage therapist too, and it smelled of massage oils, really nice. So anyway, Penna didn't have that advantage. She would come down on the overnight train and arrive a little bit bleary-eyed and, oh, I need a cup of coffee. I don't know what happened to Penna. I don't know if she still lives up in the far north of Scotland, or if she's still doing kinesiology. Kay might know. I think it was through Kay that we met Penna. Anyway, there would be Jane Thurnall Reid, Charles Benham, Kay, Jeremy, Carrie, me, and we discussed how to go forward, and we decided that we would take all the common threads, you know, what's common, what do we all do that everyone will appreciate and know, and then each separate K obviously build on it in their own ways, and still do. I mean, there are new ways of using kinesiology that are being evolved even now, aren't there?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's what's amazing about kinesiology is it just has so many potential offshoots from it, you know, from the basic muscle testing and balancing. It just opens up this world, which is why I guess we have so many schools and branches, because it just has that ability to adapt and be adapted. Yes,
absolutely. And what's super is that it eventually became put on a very formal footing. I can remember going up to London time and time again. We were making the meetings were called the Nos Meetings, KNOS, Kinesiology National Occupational Standard.
Yes. Yes, I wake up thinking about that.
Oh my word. There was another lady who was on that committee too with me, called Monkhouse. What's her? Not Elena Monkhouse. Oh, I know her husband is called Muncaster. Martin Muncaster was her husband, and he was a broadcaster. And he broadcast on BBC, on radio, the home service, the formal one anyway, and he had the most beautiful voice. Beautiful voice. And if ever I needed to phone Mrs. Muncaster, I'm really sorry, I can't remember your name, and I can see her face even now. She was lovely. I'll remember as soon as we've stopped talking. Anyway, I used to hope that Martin would answer the phone first and then would pass me over to his wife, because honestly, his voice just made you shiver in your shoes. Yes, she and I used to go to the Nos meetings and thrash out, what are we doing? Can we add this? Can we add that? I used to sit at the back thinking, it should be so simple. You know, you do this, you say this is one thing that we do, and everyone else would say, yes, we do that too. Okay, put that in. Somebody else would say, we do this. Everyone else would say, we do it also, but we do it this way. Okay, we'll talk about it a little bit more, then we'll put that in. it wasn't simple. I'll tell you what, it really wasn't simple. We were there for ages.
I can imagine. Bettina, who's recording this, I can see her face. And yeah, she's feeling your pain.
Feel your pain over that one. Oh dear.
No, that's brilliant. It's so interesting to hear a history of how it came about. You know, first-hand experience is really, really important and really interesting.
Interesting that at the time it seemed like a struggle. However, I think it really wasn't. You know, I think everybody just...
I think that might be the benefit of hindsight speaking.
It might be. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a lot of work, and yeah, it was a good thing to do.
Yeah, and there was the Complementary Medicine Association as well. We were in on the beginning of that one.
Okay.
Okay, we're still talking about the beginnings of kinesiology, and I am being a little tiny bit like Madame la Chaise Longue and doing my witchery bit. But as I keep remembering things, you know, things keep coming up. And I can remember Maureen Hardy likening the start of the Federation to having a baby. And, you know, we talked about it a lot, we nurtured it, and we put it on the road and watched it grow. And I've always said, you know, when you have a child, the child is yours until it's born, really. And then you put it on the road and nurture it and watch it grow and just allow it to spread its wings. And that's what the KF has done. It's grown lots of feathers on the way, lots and lots of feathers. Sometimes ones that have been quite challenging, but anyway, they make up the whole entity. And I was just remembering that first advanced educate class that Paul and Gail Dennison came to teach. It was at Teacher Training College in South London. And we had Jane Thurnell-Reed, Anthony Attenborough, Jeremy Glynn, Carrie Jost, Pat Harrington came, and I was there. And it was so transforming, really, it was. And I went home thinking that I could absolutely change the world. And there was a reporter who lived along the coast from us. I think she lived in Selsey, and I don't remember her name, unfortunately. I'm not good with names this morning, am I? I'll remember them as soon as we've stopped recording. Anyway, she wanted to ask about educate. So she said, could she interview me? And so I went, absolutely full of it. And she wanted to experience it. So she wanted to have an educate balance session. Do you know, it didn't work. Whatever, I just so wanted it to go well and be right, but it didn't work. Nothing I did made any difference to her whatsoever. The techniques I'd learned that I was saying, oh, this will help you do. When she tried to do it at the beginning, because, you know, you do something, you find it doesn't go quite right, you do something that will help you, and then you do it again to see how you've progressed. She didn't progress. It didn't work. Oh, I was so upset. I was devastated. I think I cried more after that because I so wanted it to work.
Yes.
Well, you know, I think there's the lesson. You're not making it work. Yes. You're actually doing what we talked about earlier, drawing something out, allowing something to happen rather than forcing something and making it happen.
Yes.
Kinesiology doesn't go like that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's what's lovely about it, is it's led by the body, not by us. And that's what I say to my clients. It's like, you know, that's why I like it, because you're doing all the work and I'm just translating. I don't have to sit there thinking about what I have to do to help you. Your body's providing me with that information.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you see, I hadn't understood that at the beginning. And it was a vital lesson that I learned on that day. Vital lesson. And the reporter actually wasn't worried. I know she did write something about kinesiology in one of the local papers down in Sussex. And she ended up coming to a meeting in London with me. We both drove up together. Something that Brian Butler was doing. And it's just so interesting how she helped to draw threads and draw people together. I wish I could remember her name. I probably got some of her articles in a box somewhere. I come across things every now and then, you know, I don't like throwing them away. I've got a lot of the magazines that Anne Holdway there, she's another elder stateswoman to whom we owe such a lot. Oh my word, she edited the KF News for years and encouraged people to write articles, encouraged the first conference we ran. We couldn't find a whole one venue, so we had quite a few venues, and we found lodgings for people who were coming from abroad in odd places, and some of the talks were given in one part of London University. Some of them were given in a hotel. I can remember going with Anne Holdway, desperately searching for either a hotel where we could base everyone or a venue where we could get everyone to do the talks. It was challenging. And so on the committee for that first conference, there was Anne, Kay, me, Barry, a man called Barry who changed his name to Kearty. Barry, can't remember his surname. Anyway, we managed to do it in the end. And my daughter's then boyfriend, who was a musician, he did the recording for us. He recorded it all. And I can remember phoning up the university, and somebody was arriving from abroad, and they were arriving early, much earlier than the hotel had said that they could open for them. And I can remember phoning them up, and I didn't listen when the person answered, and I just ploughed straight in. I said, "Hello, my name's Daphne Willis, and I'm being a clucky mother here." And he said, "Excuse me, a clucky what?" I said, "A clucky mother. I'm worrying about somebody who will arrive early." But we managed to pull the conference together, and we had just all those lovely international names, people coming to talk.
Oh,
I couldn't believe we'd done it in England. We did it. We did it. Yeah, sorry, I've lost the thread now.
No, that's amazing. I think it's such a lot of work.
It was. Lovely that there are people still wanting to do it, and you all, you know, still with the Federation, and I'm looking forward to the next conference that we can have when we can have it.
So are we. Yeah. It was disappointing that we had to cancel 2020's conference, which we'd already put quite a lot of work into. But that's where we are at the moment. But one day, yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's magic. You're just doing such a fabulous job.
Oh, thank you.
Fabulous. And Bettina, you're keeping us all going.
Bettina's awesome.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Like that. Brilliant. So what keeps you now passionate about kinesiology? Because, you know, obviously you've done that training, and then you've been at the head of the school, and you've done the Kinesiology Federation, and yet you're still happy to talk about it. You know, what keeps you interested?
Sorry, what's still interesting?
Yeah, what keeps you interested in kinesiology and still enthusiastic about it?
Oh my word. Certainly thinking about it being a different language, I really relate to that, and it is just a means of communicating with people. I'm absolutely passionate about it because I love it. You can always use little snippets and little bits to help yourself, and maybe help other people. But it's the joy of being able to be with someone and then communicate with their whole system, and a whole story opens up. You know, it's a way of saying to everything about them, how are you? Are you okay? If you're not okay, is there something that deep inside your body knows about that will help you to be okay? And more to the point, as a practitioner, you're not doing something to the person, you're drawing out and finding something for them that is helping them to have information, knowledge, and know something that they can do for themselves. So whilst you might say, oh, this bit's broken, I'm going to fix it, what you're actually doing is saying, this bit needs a little bit of help, it's just gone out of sync a little bit. Let's see how we can tickle it up a little bit and find something that you can always do that will help you to feel better.
That's brilliant. That's one of the best descriptions I've heard. I was going to ask you later on how you would describe kinesiology, but I think you've just described it brilliantly. I'm itching for a session now. That was fantastic. So, I mean, we know that kinesiology can have this massive effect on people's lives, whether it's on a physical level or an emotional level, and that as practitioners and teachers, that we almost live it. It becomes a part of our life. And I think what you've just said sort of sums that up, that it you know, you never stop doing it. It's always there, and you're still, you know, we're always doing little bits on people and in the background. It just becomes a part of our existence, I think.
Absolutely. And every morning I do something, you know, if I'm feeling a little bit, I don't know whether I can get up this morning. Even just lying in bed, I will do my central meridian, rub my raglans. Oh, do you know what? People, when I say to people, rub your raglans, they go, pardon? And so I have to go into a whole description about my granny knitting a jumper with the sleeve seams that come down here. And I say, those are the raglan seams. And so it's a good way of explaining where the lymphatic points are for your central meridian. So yeah, well, right, if I don't feel like it. I was telling Bettina the other day, when I was up in London for a committee meeting once, I'd actually stayed overnight at Jeremy's house because of the timing. And I just didn't feel like it in the morning when I came downstairs. And I said, oh, I don't feel like it. And I was expecting him to say, oh, give me a little bit of a kinesiology hug, you know, and say, there. But he said, oh, come on, Daph, pull yourself together. Have a drink of water. Do your points. And oh, yes, okay, that's what to do.
I'm just going to, because you've mentioned Bettina, I'm just going to mention that Bettina Katz is the Kinesiology Federation's admin, and she does an absolutely brilliant job. So thank you for mentioning her there, Daphne. So what have you got an example you can give me of one of the most transformational changes you've seen either in yourself or a client through kinesiology, or a student?
In myself, I think, well, I've always been a positive, I can do that kind of person. And I think maybe kinesiology has made me even more so. I think I said to Bettina one time, I was on a course that Carl Ferreri was running, and it's always struck me, stayed in my mind, one thing that he said, always do something, never do nothing. So that's a transformation for me. There's always something that you can do, even if it's a very small thing, you know. I always go to the ESR points, and I think that's one of the things that you can always do. So from being a can-do, jump in, let's be jolly kind of person, it's also taught me to be quite quiet. Sometimes being quiet and holding your head and not doing very much can be as powerful, sometimes even more powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is a transformation. You don't have to be bouncy and shouty all the time. Being quiet is equally powerful.
Yeah.
So that's an inside kind of transformation. An outside kind of transformation is knowing how muscles work and knowing specific points that help specific muscles for yourself. So actually, my specific points are along the pubic bone. Psoas. I'd had a lot of back problems, a lot of back pain, and wasted a lot of time lying on the floor because that's what the doctor said I had to do because it would make my back better. You know, just don't get up and walk about, just lie on the floor. But since finding kinesiology, I've found I recognize which muscles have gone a little bit out of sync and can rob the necessary points to help them maintain their strength.
That's really good. That's good. Thank you. So as part of our 30th anniversaries, we're asking people to share their pearls of wisdom, or some pearls of wisdom with us. And I know you have a few. Are there any that you could share with us here and now that would be quite easy to do?
One thing that is supremely easy to do, it just came to me when I was brushing my teeth this morning. I looked in the mirror and I grinned, and I remembered that I tell people this told people when I was teaching in the class. I'll have to take my specs off. Just here, you've got a couple of little glands that secrete happy hormones. So, when people chook babies on their chins like this and the baby giggles, well, that's actually a case in point. And so my big pearl of wisdom is smile, because when you smile, it raises your cheeks here, and it's almost like pinching this little click, and it releases the happy hormones, and it always makes me feel better. So again, if I'm feeling a bit bleh, I just don't have to look in the mirror, but I just smile.
That is such a good point, because sometimes, I do the same thing. Sometimes if I'm feeling a bit low or, lacking a bit of enthusiasm or energy, just bringing your posture up and smiling, you might feel insane, but it does encourage you to feel better.
For sure. And funnily enough, when that particular pinch is at the end of a row of corrections for one of the 3-in-1 corrections.
Oh, okay.
And once I knew about the gland under there and the hormone, it makes it even better, because now I know why.
And then I just try not to worry about the crow's feet that go with it. I'm going to focus more on the cheeks.
Oh, now then, one of the courses in 3-in-1 is all about physiognomy, and crow's feet aren't crow's feet, they're empathy lines.
Well, I've got plenty of those.
So you're so empathic. I don't know
I
if
like
it's
that.
empathic or empathetic, but certainly, lots of lines here. You have lots of empathy. They're called empathy.
Some of them seem to go right around the back. I don't know.
It's all right. It's all right to have them. Mm. There are actually quite a few things that I could share.
That's good.
So one of them is all about digestion, really. It has helped mothers whose babies have colic. Don't know, do you want me to tell you all about that one now?
Well, give us a little teaser.
Shall I tell you the story about taking my daughter to the theatre? And we'd raced out very quickly. We went to the theatre in Chichester, and just before the interval, she said, "Mummy, I've got a really bad tummy ache." So I thought, oh dear, hard luck. We went outside in the interval. She had a drink of water, she got some fresh air. I gave her a bit of a cuddle. However, when we got home, she was really, really in pain and lying on the bed all screwed up and crying. She's very stoic. She doesn't cry with pain normally. So I started to be worried and thought, oops, emergency appendectomy coming up here maybe. Then this was in the early days of Pat Harrington's Touch for Health classes. And I remembered that Pat had said about rubbing under the rib cage, and it connected to your intestines, the small intestine actually. So, oh, and we had just learned about surrogacy. So I held on to my daughter, I put my hand on her, and then I rubbed under my rib cage as hard as I possibly could. And from a screwed up, crying body on the bed, suddenly she relaxed, looked up, smiled and said, "Thanks, Mum."
Oh, that's amazing.
All the pain had gone. Really, all the pain had gone. And it was literally just starting under the xiphoid here and rubbing all the way down under the rib cage. And I was doing it on myself pretty firmly because I was surrogating for Gemma. I know corrections do work through a surrogate. It's always better if you can do it on the person, or if they can do it for themselves. But it's very powerful if you do it as a surrogate.
And I guess because you were doing that on yourself as well, you would have been a lot firmer than you would have been on your daughter.
For sure, yes. I was certainly afraid that I would have hurt her more by rubbing her. Yeah. And working through a surrogate is, again, one of the magical things. Absolute magic. I think that's one of the most powerful things that I have learned in kinesiology as well, that you can get someone's information through someone else.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's a lovely connection as well.
Yeah, yes, it is. Oh yes, so okay, back to the pearl of wisdom. So yes, the small intestine points are super to tell young moms maybe whose babies have colic. They don't need to put them over their shoulder and bash hard or run up and down the stairs like I used to with my son because he had colic. You can just very gently, because actually you can surrogate for the baby, you can hold them and rub your own points, or very, very gently rub their little chests. Yes. And I've heard from lots of young moms that that is very special, and it really does work.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for that.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I think being gentle and being simple is also very important. So another pearl of wisdom for sure is the ESR points.
Yes.
And that's very, very comforting. Very, very comforting.
Yes.
You can hold them like that, or you can put your whole hand. I actually like the whole hand.
I like the whole hand as well, and on the back of the head as well.
The back of the head
and again, it's lovely to have that done to you and to do it to somebody else, because that touch is so important.
Yes, yeah, it feels very, very good. Actually, quite naughty. I can remember teaching a class at home one time, and I'd written a whole sequence of things to do on pieces of flip chart, and I'd stuck them up around the room. And when everyone else had gone home, my husband came in and he was looking at them, and one of them said, ask permission to work. If you get yes, proceed. You ask the body for permission. It's okay. It's safe and fine to work with the person. If it's okay, carry on. If not, FO. And that means frontal occipital. He looks at it and he says, what are you telling them to do? I often think about that. The frontal occipital holding is just so beautiful. But
that's perfect. I like that. I like
when Gordon Stokes said to a class that I was in, anything corrects anything. And I was reminded about time quite early on in my 3-in-1 training, actually. A friend of mine phoned quite early in the morning and said, I feel really awful. I've come to work and on my way, I witnessed a really horrific accident. It happened right in front of me. And I just don't know, I don't feel okay. And so I said, well, would you like me just to come? He knew that I did kinesiology and had phoned me because he thought I might be able to help in some way. So anyway, I went to where he worked and he really was in a state, horrible shock and shaking. So I actually held his head like this and allowed him to breathe. And I said to him, just remember the accident now, just see it as you were seeing it. And I could feel his head here all buzzing, 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 buzzing. And eventually it calmed down. And I said, okay, now take a really deep breath and blow it all out. And now, if you can, just picture the person. I mean, obviously he couldn't picture the person being better, but picture them being cared for and being in a safe place in hospital, wherever. So that was fine. And then I thought, see, in my, what shall I say, rash way, I thought I should do something more. So I thought, he's probably in adrenal overwhelm. So I started doing the correction for adrenal overwhelm, I thought. Anyway, eventually he did seem a lot better, a lot calmer, and he said, thank you. I feel as though I can get on with the day now. In my car on the way home, I thought, I missed out that last stage of the adrenal overwhelm correction. What was it? And then I thought, adrenal overwhelm doesn't have a last stage in the correction. And I was doing the correction for ileocecal valve. And I had just ploughed in, thinking he needs something more, because I wasn't doing any muscle monitoring on him or anything. I was just doing what I thought.
Yes, that's when we do a little bit extra for ourselves.
That's it, yeah. He must be in adrenal overwhelm. I will do the adrenal overwhelm correction. Oh dear, I didn't. And I did most of the ileocecal valve correction, having missed out the last bit. So anyway, back into my head came Gordon's lovely words, anything corrects anything. Well, it doesn't. That didn't make any difference at all. It was just allowing him to be and process that had helped him. So that really was a lesson that I learned, you know.
We learn so many lessons along the way.
We do, we absolutely do. And it's okay, don't, you know that old phrase, less is more? Don't think that you need to go on and go on and go on. The body will know.
Absolutely. It's like it's like those sessions where maybe a lot of work doesn't come up and you think, I'm not justifying the fee here, but the body's getting what the body needs.
Exactly. That's been an important lesson along the way that I've learned as well. Body gets.
Thank you for sharing that.
enough is enough.
Oh, thank you, Daphne. It's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Very lovely to talk to you as well.
Thank you.